we let it sit. We'll pull that out early, I should say. We'll pull a roast out early. We'll let it sit, and the residual cooking, the carryover heat, will continue cooking that roast until it's done. During this resting time, we're also allowing that pressure to stop rolling around inside and calm down and let those juices settle into the meat, okay? So when we cut it open, the juices all don't spill out all over the place, okay? So this idea of carryover heat lets us take in this concept of resting time. It gives us time to let the juices settle into the meat. It lets that carryover heat cook the meat the rest of the way. And then another thing that it lets us do, this idea of this residual cooking and all of this, it gives us an excuse to make some gravy, because while this is all happening, this resting time and everything, hey, what are you gonna do? Pick the lint out of your navel, right? Get over there and make a gravy, make a little sauce or something for your bird, okay? And so while this resting is happening, you can crank out a little gravy in about 10 or 15 minutes, and then by the time your gravy's done, your roast is ready to serve. And that's how Thanksgiving has worked since the days of the cavemen, okay? So yeah, let's see what else I got on my little speechify here, okay? Let's talk about that desired doneness, okay? Now, we use a meat thermometer to kind of gauge the temperature on the inside of the roast, okay? When I'm looking at that temperature, usually it's the tip of the thermometer that's kind of gauging this, and I want to get the tip of the thermometer into the deepest part of the muscle, and my massive bicep, it'd be way down in there, right? And we get that tip into the very, very center, and then we take that reading, and then we know what the internal temperature is, and then we can kind of judge what we're looking for, okay? Now, what am I looking for? Most people are looking for about a medium rare on a roast, right? If we're talking red meats, right? When I'm looking at red meats, I will be shooting for about 130 to 135. I said that earlier, right? So I'm temping for that. If I want medium, if I want to take it another step up, like we might see like we might enjoy in St. Louis, Missouri or something like that in the Midwest, where they want it cooked a little bit more, right? We're looking for about 135 to 145. In California, that's what I'd call a medium right there, okay? And so that's kind of the idea with your degree of doneness. Most people aren't looking for a super rare roast or anything like that. Most people aren't looking for a super well done roast, okay? When we are temping these meats, again, medium rare, 130 to 135, and then the medium was 135 to 145. That's a 10-point spread on that one. The other one was 5, okay? By the way, about 145, 155, medium well, anything above 155, let's just call that well done. Don't you guys think? Let me get a little sip here. Yeah, you guys doing okay? Mazel tov. I hope everybody's doing great. This is where I need the band. A snappy band. Playing snappy tunes. What I want to do right now, before I get into any more of this business, I want to go ahead and pull out my roast and let's take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little baste. And what am I going to baste it with? I got a little of my rendered animal fat that I use for pretty much everything. Anything I'm cooking around here, I'm making a stock, anything like that, I save the fat off the top of that, and I'm using it for cooking. So again, I said it earlier, there's a little bacon fat in this, there's a little bit of chicken fat, there's some duck fat in there. Thank God for duck fat, don't you guys think? Don't you think? I love the duck fat, okay? So this is just a nice flavorful fat that I'm gonna use for basting, okay? What's a fat I don't wanna use? Gosh, I don't know, coconut oil might be a little weird on there, might make it taste like Thai food, but if I wanted to do a red curry roasted chicken, I can make a little mixture of coconut oil and curry spices and things like that and be brushing that on my chicken as it roasts, right? Why not? Let me pull out this bird and we'll take a look. So really not a ton of color there. I might just bump up my oven a little bit because again, I've got kind of a crappy little home oven here. It's not all that great. So I'm going to take mine from 350 and I'm going to experiment a little bit with 400 here. This bird even got a little pre-sear too, and it's still just not jumping around much in there. So I gotta crank this puppy up. Oh, what am I doing? I pulled it out so I could baste it. Let's do this. Now, as you're pulling it out, I wanna caution you, make sure that you are closing that oven door right up, okay? When you open that oven door, that just drives me crazy. People will open that door and just sit there and like, hey, chef, what do you think about this over here? And it's just like, close your freaking door, man. You're losing all your heat in there. Especially if it starts getting hot in the summertime. What do you want to do? Heat up your whole house, right? So as soon as you pull that bird out, close that door. When you put the bird in, shut that door. Don't slam it. Be nice, okay? But we can't go around just leaving our oven doors open. Same thing with your refrigerator, okay? We're trying to save the planet here. So in she goes. She's all nicely basted. And away we go. That bird's still going. It smells like bacon fat in here. It smells really good. It's going to be bacon chicken. Two great animals that taste great together. Finally. Let's see. Getting back to the lecture part of this, okay? That was just a little repartee there. So, we just got done talking about carryover heat. We just got done talking about resting, how those juices need to kind of settle into the meat before we cut into it and everything, right? So, other things with roasting technique, okay? Season those meats a day ahead. Like I said, work that seasoning into the meat so it gets a chance to penetrate. If you're trying to do a roast and you just pull it out and slap a little salt on there and go, yeah, it'll be a little salty on the outside, but it's not going to penetrate very far, okay? It's the same thing if I'm making potato salad. I got to really work a lot of seasoning into that stuff to really penetrate the actual potato pieces. I don't want just seasoning on the outside. I want it seasoned through and through, okay? And that's how you cook, right? And so season those meats a day ahead to help contribute to that flavor, allow those seasonings to penetrate for you, okay? Truss the meats to allow them to maintain shape, okay? I could actually show you a couple of little trussing knots since we got time here and you guys aren't going anywhere, right? Let me wash my hands and let's truss a little something. Just in case you wanted to truss a bird. I've got some wimpy little housewifey string in here. Ooh, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. Let me get a victim. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just roll this on up to simulate a leg o' lamb or a prime rib or anything like that. Phil Webster, good to see you, brother. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab a little piece of string. This isn't my real butcher twine. I think that's out in the garage, and we don't want to go out there right now. Not during the summer of COVID, okay? Now, what I'm going to show you is just a quickie one. This is what they call the running butcher's tie, but I'll be honest, this is the running chef's tie because butchers don't use this tie. It uses one piece of string throughout. A butcher wants to put something in their case that they could cut in half and sell half of that, right? And so they need individual strings going through or they can't cut the whole thing. Using the tie I'm getting ready to show you, you wouldn't be able to cut this thing in half. Okay, so when I'm doing this running butcher's tie, I like to just cut it all the way off, and I grab plenty of string for this, okay? Again, we're practicing on a prime rib, or a leg of lamb, okay? So when I'm doing this tie, I start out at one end. Let me get rid of this cuchillo before I hurt myself here. I start out at one end and just kind of run it on down, and I always want my seam to be on the bottom. I don't want the seam to be on the top where people are going to see it. And I also want my string to run along the bottom as well where my seam is, okay? I don't want to show that along. I don't want to have a sideways string running along the top here, okay? So I'm going to start this out just by tying a string here. I'm not sure, tying just a granny knot here. I'm not sure how well you guys can see this, but I can just tie kind of a slip knot here. Again, this is the cheater trussing, in my opinion. And that created a little slip knot, and I can just get that a little tighter. And I'm going to go around, whoops, Let me try that again. They don't call it a slip knot for nothing. Oh! And I want the knot to be where my seam is. Okay? Now that I've got it anchored, I've got all the string here, okay? I'm gonna lay that string in the palm of my hand, and I'm gonna turn my hand all the way around, okay? Not just halfway, but all the way. My fingertips are pointing away from me, okay? And I'm gonna take the loop that I just made, and I'm gonna slide it underneath, and then I'm gonna tighten that. This is how I would tie maybe a prime rib or something, right? If I was a cook, which I kind of am, right? Okay, lying in my hand again, I'm twisting it all the way around and down. Boom. Slide it. The string's a little slippery. Hook. And I'm going to do it again. A full twist all the way around. Oh, lost the view. Lower camera. Tricky. There you go. Thank you, Allison. Please lower the camera. I got it, guys. Sorry about that. Now, as I did that, it's impossible to see with all the white, right? But I basically let the string, there's a string going sideways here and it's following the seam. When I turn this over, all of that ugliness is underneath. So when I slice this, it's nice and beautiful, okay? I finished this thing up just by tying a little knot at the end. Nothing fancy, and you're done. There's a quick and easy little truss for you that you can use for, you know, leg of lamb or something like that, if you need to. Most of the time, butchers are going to take care of that for you. Oh my goodness. Did I already tie this thing before I did it? No. There it is. Okay, like I said, nothing fancy on this last tie. And then the butcher's tie is a little bit different. It's attached to the bolt. You roll it underneath. You do one of these. Pull. Oh, I did it wrong. It's messing me up because it's not attached to my bolt. I don't have a long enough piece here. Not attached to the bolt. We're going to just bust that one out. All right. And so, let me go back to roasting technique, okay? We left off on trussing, basically. Let me kind of adjust this a little bit. There we go. I think that's working. So, you want to remove large pieces of meat from the refrigerator about an hour, maybe two ahead. It depends on how big the piece of meat is. Sometimes we would do the entire back leg of a cow when we were in the hotels, right? We would do a couple of those at a time sometimes. That entire back leg of cow is ice cold all the way to the center. And if I just throw it into an oven, I'm just trying to cook this ice cube, right? So those big back legs of cows, we call them barons of beef, we would pull those things out like 2.5 hours ahead of time to allow them to start coming to room temperature. When they rolled into the oven, we had a much more even cooking time. I do the same thing with my meats. If I'm going to roast something, I don't want to try and roast something ice cold out of the refrigerator. Keith Breedlove, good to see you. I'm going to get another shot here. You guys follow along. I need you to pay special attention to this last part here. Demo time. Okay. While those meats are starting to temper, that's kind of the term I use for that, right? Kind of getting that meat up to temperature, getting it out of that fridge. You want to go ahead and get that oven preheating, okay? I mentioned earlier 350 is kind of my go-to temperature for most applications, and like my beginning, chefies or chefettes that are kind of coming up, we're talking 350 to begin with. But I mentioned earlier, if I've got a smaller piece of meat, I might go higher temp. You guys know what a pork tenderloin looks like? It looks about like the size